Climate change, the urgent call to action. Unpacking the impacts of climate change. Impact of climate change on our communities. Understanding different risks. Effects on health. Recap. Can you recall what is climate change? Climate change refers to significant and lasting changes in the Earth's weather patterns and overall climate. It happens because the Earth's atmosphere is slowly getting warmer as time is passing. This warming is mainly caused by various reasons like natural disasters, human activities like burning fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas, and deforestation, cutting down trees, etc. As we continue our journey to understand climate change and its far-reaching effects, let's now explore how certain factors and conditions can intensify its impact on communities and ecosystems. These unique challenges can sometimes make coping with environmental changes even more complex. Does climate change affect everyone the same way? It doesn't affect everyone the same way. Imagine it as if climate change is like a storm, and different communities are like boats on the sea. Some boats are sturdier and better equipped to handle the storm, while others might be smaller and more fragile. It emphasizes that different communities and groups can experience climate change's impacts differently. This can be because of where they live, their economic situation, or other factors like their access to resources and education. Essentially, it's about understanding that climate change isn't a one-size-fits-all issue. It can have more severe consequences for some people and communities than for others. Understanding multiple risks faced by communities. This is where multiple risks come into the picture. It's a bit like a double or even triple challenge for some communities. Some places are more prone to risks due to climate change because of where they are located, like if they are close to the sea or in a really hot area. That's one geographic vulnerability. Let us take a look at some cases from different communities to understand the risks further. Climate change. Impact on the Sundarbans. Sundarbans is the world's largest contiguous mangrove forest and is a designated World Heritage Site. Shared by India and Bangladesh, it is home to several species, including tigers. The habitat supports approximately 4.37 million people. As per the research conducted, it is believed that the Sundarbans have soaked in 4.15 crore tons of carbon dioxide. Due to climate change, the Sundarbans face several challenges. With rising sea levels, islands are disappearing, and the increasing salinity in the water and soil has severely threatened the health of mangrove forests and the quality of soil and crops. Additionally, there have been serious disturbances to hydrological parameters. Hydrological parameters refer to various characteristics and measurements related to water, especially in the context of Earth's climate system and how it's changing due to climate change and changes in fishing patterns, resulting in disastrous consequences for fishermen. Due to changes in rainfall patterns and sea level rise, the fishermen community cannot go and catch fish. This would then impact their livelihood and would not be able to feed their families. The low-lying houses in the community near the sea will get destroyed due to excessive rains, or the sea might start drying up due to low rainfall. Frequent cyclones and changed monsoon patterns are damaging ecology and humanity. With the risk of the Sundarbans submerging, there is an urgent need for global reduction of emissions and replacement of fossil fuels with renewable energy. Let us try to answer these questions before we analyze one more. How did climate change impact the communities living in Sundarbans? If no preventive measures are taken, share what do you think will happen to the communities living in those regions in the future. What are the weaknesses or risks of the communities living in such region? A community living in Hubli. Mr. Patel's farm. Mr. Patel has a farm in Hubli where he grows fruits and vegetables. Last 10 years, the rainfall declined. The area where his farm is located doesn't get enough rain, which makes it hard for his crops to grow. This affects his ability to provide food for his family and earn money. So, Mr. Patel's vulnerability is the lack of enough water for his farm. How would the lack of water impact Mr. Patel? Impact. He can't sell veggies, can't bring home the money, and cannot feed his own family as well. Hence, the climate change is making his survival vulnerable and at risk. Prashant's home. Prashant lives near the river in Hubli. His home is at risk of flooding when there are heavy rains or if the river overflows. Flooding can damage her house and make it unsafe to live in. So his vulnerability is the risk of his home being damaged by floods. What are the risks at home? Prashant will lose all the things that are there in the house. The property will be damaged and the recovery cost will be a lot. Let us try to answer these questions. What are the challenges or risks of the communities living in Hubli? Do you think the communities living in Hubli and Sundarbans are facing the same struggles or having the same effects of climate change? How do different things like where you live, how much money your family has, whether you are a boy or a girl, affect how you deal with climate change? Intersection of the multiple risks. These risks can intersect, meaning the different dangers can come together, which means that some groups of people have to deal with many problems at the same time because of climate change. Let us look at an example. A community in a low-lying coastal area may be vulnerable due to rising sea levels, geographic vulnerability, and limited economic resources, socio-economic vulnerability. This intersection of risk can increase the community's challenges and ways to fight the situation. When the houses get destroyed, people with less money will not be able to build or repair it again. If the water supplies dried out due to excessive heat in the community, women might have to walk longer distances to get water for their family. Hence, different things like where you live, how much money your family has, whether you're a boy or a girl, affect how you deal with climate change. This shows how different problems are interlinked for a community due to climate risks. Different risks due to climate change. Race, geographical, socio-economic, gender, access to resources. Understanding different risks. Geographical risk. Some places are more at risk of climate change because of where they are located, like if they are close to the sea or in a really hot area. Socio-economic. Some communities might not have much money or access to important things like clean water or good schools or build strong protections. Gender. Due to various lack of resources to fight climate change effects, one gender in the community faces more problems, like women walking more distances to get drinking water in villages. Access to resources. Accessibility issues for various resources when required to fight climate change due to various reasons. Example, while a community is dealing with floods, they might not be able to build or repair their houses again due to lack of resources. Do you think different people, men, women, children, or elderly, are impacted differently during climate change in one community? A community living in Hubli. Shankar's grandfather. Shankar's grandpa lives alone and has difficulty moving around. During extreme heat waves in the summer, it becomes very hot, which can make his grandpa feel sick or uncomfortable. So, his grandpa's problem is the health risks associated with extreme heat. Lata's neighborhood. Lata lives in a neighborhood that doesn't have a well or many trees to provide shade or green cover. Without trees, there is less shade and less green cover for children to play safely. This makes it harder for Lata to send her kids in her neighborhood to play outside without access to green spaces and enjoy outdoor activities. So, Lata's vulnerability is the lack of green spaces and safe places in her community. This would also lead to less fresh air and more pollution, increasing the risk of asthma or other diseases. It's important to understand that vulnerabilities or difficulties can be different for different people. Some vulnerabilities can be related to where they live, the resources they have, or their personal situations. So that means these risks also affect human health in the communities. Climate change poses a great risk for human health. Let us now understand how, with multiple risks in a community, impact on human health increases. Impact of climate change on human health. Impact of climate change is on environment, health, and economy. As we saw in the case of Hubli, some people may already face difficulties like not having enough money, not having access to good health care, or not having safe places to live. These things make them more vulnerable to problems. When climate change happens, it can make these problems even worse. For example, let's say there's a family in Hubli who doesn't have a lot of money. They might already find it hard to afford enough food, and when a big flood happens because of climate change, it can destroy their crops or damage their home. This makes it even harder for them to get the food they need and have a safe place to live. Another example is an older person in Hubli who may have trouble moving around. When it gets really hot because of climate change, it can make them feel even sicker or more uncomfortable. This is because extreme heat can be dangerous for their health, and they might need extra help to stay safe. Multiple risks are the reason that climate change doesn't affect everyone in the same way. Some people may already have more difficulties or vulnerabilities, and climate change can make their lives even harder. What does it mean for India? More than 80% of India's population lives in districts highly vulnerable to extreme hydromet disasters, water-prone disasters like floods, cyclones, etc. The southern zone of India is the most vulnerable to extreme climate events and their compounding impacts, followed by the eastern, western, northern, northeastern, and central zones. 59 and 41% of the total districts in the eastern and western zone of India are highly vulnerable to extreme cyclone events. The states located in India's northeast are more vulnerable to floods, while the states in the southern and central parts are more vulnerable to extreme droughts. 5 out of 6 zones in India, that is, South, North, Northeast, West, and Central, have a low capability to handle changes or problems due to extreme hydromet disasters. However, the Eastern Zone has a medium range capability to handle extreme hydromet disasters. Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Bihar are highly vulnerable to extreme climate events such as floods, droughts, and cyclones. Climate Vulnerability Index. So, what have we understood today? Climate change and effect on communities: geological, socio-economic, health, access to resources, effect on gender or age group, race.